Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, the storms blew through this morning. We didn't get too much of it, not even any hail where we're at, but there was some hail just east of us. It kind of started picking up a little bit of energy as it passed over us. So we were pretty fortunate here, but there was definitely a little bit of damage. Even some folks within our local community reported a little bit of damage, nothing major. But it's passed, and now it's back to being cool. Yesterday it was 82 degrees, and well, it's jacket weather now, back to being cool for a day or so. I want to talk to you about something that we have discussed at length many times, and at times I feel like a broken record. Some of you are probably tired of me saying this, but it needs to be said, and because of the time of the year, I'm going to be pushing you folks hard on this, and that is food production and why you need to be doing it. With all the stuff that's been going on, and we've covered it on this channel, I've talked to you about it quite at length. Go back just in the last few days and look at all the reasons why food is going to become expensive, and it's going to become hard for a lot of people. It's just inevitable. There's some more reasons why, and we'll get into that here in a second, but I'm telling you folks, you need to be producing food. You absolutely have to. And if you're at this place of like, well, I don't know that I can, or I don't really have the place, or I don't know how, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you're watching YouTube most likely right now, or Rumble or something like that. And if you don't know how to plant tomatoes, well, there's probably tens of thousands of videos that'll teach you how to plant a tomato, or how to do a garden in your, home in potted plants, or how to grow plants on your little balcony or in your backyard, or whatever. There's lots and lots of video. It would be a complete brain overload of the amount of content that currently exists out there on how to grow food. So there's not really an excuse for it. And seeds aren't that expensive. They're just not. I mean, if you can't afford good quality seeds, just get any seeds. I do recommend good quality seeds, but if you can't afford it, just get whatever you can and get it in the ground. Because I'm telling you folks, you're gonna want to be producing a lot of food. Yesterday I spent pretty much the whole day getting the rest of our garden plot ready and then expanding it. I don't know, I haven't measured of exactly how much I expanded square footage wise, but we're well into the totals of 12,000 plus square feet, maybe more, and I'm not done yet. There's still another area that I've got to work. That's just the one big garden, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that because I mean, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to prepare it, to plant it, to tend to it. All of that. It's going to be a lot of work to process all the food that's produced out of it, but we're doing it because we know that things are getting tough. Walmart, I saw this morning that Walmart is working on more cutbacks because their sales, they're seeing a hit in their sales due to all the inflation, and the inflation's just going to get worse, folks. It's not going to get any better anytime soon. And food prices, they're just going up, and they're going to continue going up. Around the first of the year, I was reporting that that hay prices are going to be worse this year, which if hay, which is what cattle eat, are up, then of course that means the price of the cattle is going to be up. Of course, we've euthanized and killed 60 plus million chickens in this country, so that's just going to keep getting worse. Egg prices, they're still not where they need to be. Just overall, like the cattle, we have the least amount of cattle herd in this country since the 1960s, and the least amount of hay since the 1960s or 70s. So that's kind of starting it off, and we've already touched on that. There's reports that the fertilizer prices this year are going to be way higher than they even were last year. And of course, we were all noticing how high they were last year. So starting the year off, we knew that things were going to be bad, and they're just getting worse. USDA reports came out this week that the winter wheat that's already growing that's soon to be harvested. The winter wheat conditions are the worst conditions since 1989. Most of the wheat that's in the ground that's getting ready to harvest, the condition of it is below 30% good. Some of it's below 20% good. Vast amounts of it. It's not really good right now. I mean, the lowest quality since 1989. And the spring wheat planting is awful too. The spring wheat planting is the lowest amount in the last 50 years. So in the last 50 years, we're planting this year the least amount. That's some numbers to kind of stand up and take notice about, because of course there's a lot more people and we're letting millions and millions in a year across our border, and then the rest of the world is complaining about all these food shortages and stuff throughout the Middle East, the whole war with Russia and Ukraine. So where's all the extra wheat that's needed, or extra food that's needed to feed all those people, going to come from? Well, most likely us, because we're the biggest producer. But we're not going to be the biggest producer if we're planting less than we have in 50 years and we're letting millions and millions across the border. It's just diluting the whole system, making the pieces of pie that you get a lot smaller. And it's not getting any better. For the last few years, we've had problems in California with excessive drought. And you can see here on this drought map, it's gotten better, but there's still a lot of very serious extreme drought areas, and we haven't even gotten into drought season yet. But now there's a new problem that you all know about in California. Over the last few months, it's been excessive rains. Excessive. In fact, some places in California on a weekly basis were getting as much rain as they would receive in an entire year, and it was happening over and over again. In a place that's called kind of the salad bowl of California, it's where most of the leafy greens and berries like strawberries and things are raised. And it's just completely underwater, large portions of it. Just in January alone, they estimated a crop loss of about $330 million. Yes, I know, 3-3. We see those numbers an awful lot. And that was just in January. It's continued on in February and in March, so I'm sure the numbers have just grown substantially since those numbers. This is going to affect food costs. There's predictions that salad, leafy green, lettuce prices are going to just continue to go up because of this problem, because a vast majority of the lettuce that we eat in the United States comes from those areas that have been just inundated with rains and floods. This is most, but not all, of the reasons why you should be producing your own food. And you need to be producing a lot of it. And this is the worry. I was having this conversation with my wife yesterday. My worry is that the vast majority, I don't know what would be the right term, of Americans have no real concept of what it means to produce all of your own food. I'm sure there are people out there that can honestly say that every bit of food that they eat, they produce on their land. But that's going to be an extremely tiny number. Most of us, no matter how much we farmed or gardened or raised animals or hunted or fished, have no real understanding of what it means to grow our own food. And the times in history where that's become an immediate necessity, there's certain evidence that indicates that food became very scarce because people were trying to produce or hunt and they just couldn't. In fact, back in the Great Depression era, everyone started going out and hunting. And a lot of the conservation practices that exist today in the United States are due to the Great Depression, because a lot of the wildlife was hunted to almost extinction. In fact, here in the Ozarks, the turkey, which was once very plentiful, almost completely was hunted out of existence, and only in the last couple of decades have the turkey flocks really started to build back up to where you see a lot and can actually do some pretty decent hunting in the area. This will most likely happen again. You're going to see wildlife, deer, turkey, fish, things like that, dry up because people are going to be pushed more to go hunting, and the harder the times are and the hungrier people are, the less they're going to care about the laws restricting hunting due to certain times of the year or deer tags or whatever. They're just going to feed their family if they feel it's necessary. So that's going to dry up pretty quick. Also, I just don't know that people quite have wrapped their head around, at least a lot of people, the how big of a deal it is to try to produce your own food. I mean, we produce a lot of food here on our homestead, and we're nowhere near the level that I think that we should be to be completely self-sufficient. We do a lot, and it definitely helps out with our food bill, but is it enough to survive off of? Well, I guess we could survive off of it, but it's going to be tough. Animals, as much as we all push that and think that it's great, that's going to be a tough thing because you have to feed those animals. And unless you can produce enough food for those animals, and that's difficult for a lot of people to produce the food that they need to feed the animals all year long, then you're going to have to go outside and buy it. And the expense is going to be there, but also there's a growing worry that the food that you buy to feed your livestock could be contaminated or modified in ways that you just don't want to give it to them. So there's that factor to think of. Growing your vegetables, it's going to be a lot harder than you think, and it takes a lot more than you realize to produce enough food to sustain you all year long. I mean, think about it. Most people, I understand it's different in different parts of the country, but most of America, the season that you're going to really be harvesting out of is about a 3-month period, 2 to 3 month period. And so you need to produce enough food that you harvest in those 2 to 3 months to pretty much keep you alive for 12 months. That's a lot, folks. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, there probably will be food. Yes, there definitely could be food, and most likely will be. The price could be high, but like in a video that I did yesterday on my Patreon, which I can't really talk about that here, there is a growing probability that a lot, if not all of the foods, at least at some point in the future, will be contaminated in a way on a genetic level. Let's just say it that way. And so that a lot of you are just not going to be willing to eat that kind of food and consider it a moral and health abomination. And so when we think about that kind of stuff and factor it all in, it starts to kind of settle in the vast amount of food that we need to be growing. And our diets are going to have to change. And we need to understand that. I promote foraging. I think foraging is an excellent way. There are things like acorns. In my area, acorns are extremely plentiful. Even on our piece of property, if I wanted to, I could probably harvest pickup loads of acorns every year. And that is a food source. It's not a food source that most Americans are familiar with or know how to take care of it and cook and use it, but it is a food source. And if you learn how to properly prepare it, you can produce a lot of food by just going out in the woods and picking it up in the fall. There's other things like that you can forage. And then, of course, just producing. Last year, we started something in our garden, and we're going to continue this year, which is different than what we've done in the past. In the past, like many people, we do some variety in our garden, things that we just like to grow. We're experimenting, how does this grow? Do we like this particular vegetable or something like that? This year and last year, we've done something different. We're very much limiting the variety. We're only focusing on things that produce the most, the things that produce the most bounty and the most calories. In the space that we're planting it, because that's going to eventually get to be the thing. I mean, think back to the potato famines. Why was it that people were growing and eating potatoes? Because they produce a lot in a square foot, a lot more than a lot of other vegetables. Not just a lot of food, but a lot of calories. They produce about the most calories per square foot of any vegetable that you can grow, any kind of thing you can grow in your garden. So people growing a lot of potatoes, a lot of squash, things that are easily preserved, things that just produce a lot of food and a lot of calories in the space that you have. You know, if you only have a 500 or 1,000 square foot garden, you probably need to cut down on what you're growing and just grow a lot of a couple of different things that produce a lot of calories. You have to start thinking that way. You know, if you have 3 tomato plants and 4 cucumber plants and 10 bean plants and a bunch of other stuff that are in small numbers like that, it's just not going to be enough. It'll be nice to add to your salads while they're producing, but then after that, you're not going to have any food. I know a lot of this sounds really dark, and it's depressing, and you're telling me things, too much reality. But folks, we need to hear this. We need to hear this because there's a good chance that the days are coming at us faster than we think that will be required, will be forced to live this way, or starve to death, or give in to the government system. And I'm telling you, if you don't want to do either of those latter two, you need to be getting out there and producing a lot of food and working hard. Like I said, yesterday I went to bed last night I couldn't hardly eat dinner, and it wasn't because I wasn't hungry. I told my wife, I said, I'm so tired, I can't hardly even eat. That's the kind of thing we need to do, and getting out there and producing as much as possible. It's a hard work, folks. I talked to my mother a lot about this, and eventually I'll have her back on the channel. As some of you know, that while my mother is not that old, she grew up very, very old-fashioned, even for her childhood and her generation. They lived very, very much off the land. And I've asked her before, and she had 10 siblings, grandma and grandpa and her 10 brothers and sisters. And I asked her, I said, how much food did you guys produce? How much garden? She said, I don't know the size. I was a child. She says, but I remember they were just huge, huge garden after garden, just vast gardens, huge, just massive amounts. And they weren't selling that. They were producing it for themselves. And I think a lot of people have kind of grown away from that to where now gardening has become a little backyard hobby. But I can remember as a child growing up and going to farms, not to farms that produced food to sell, but just produced a lot of their own food. And their gardens were very massive, massive gardens compared to what people are used to today. We're talking gardens that were 10 and 20,000 square foot gardens. And that was the size of gardens that they would plant to feed their own family. Folks, there's some hard times coming at us. We have, as a nation, as a people, we've been fortunate for a very long time, but we've allowed too much weak leadership for too long. And now we're going to face the really hard times. And part of those hard times are going to be that you're going to be hurting for food, hurting to pay for it, hurting to have it in your body. And you need to be producing lots and lots of it. Take it very serious. If you're looking for a good quality place to get some seeds, there is a link in the description below. It's the company that we use most of all, True Leaf Market, but you don't have to use them. Just find a good one. If you like Baker Creek or one of these others, certainly find something or a variety of all of those and stock up on your seeds and all the supplies that you need, and just get out there and start planting like your life depends on it, because at some point I'm afraid it will. Folks, right now is the time to get your houses in order and to prepare mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.